Many thanks to Resonix Sound Solutions for making this podcast a reality. Find out more about Resonix sound treatments at resonixsoundsolutions.com. SVR has become one of the real checkpoints for the sound quality world. It's the weekend where competitors bring the work they're most proud of, judges get pushed, and the community shows up ready to listen. If you care about sound quality and the craft behind a serious build, SVR is the place to hear what's possible in a proven venue, with a field of competitors who don't coast. Details and registration info are available through the Steel Valley Regional Facebook group or by contacting Larry Chishner. SVR 15, July 17th through 19th, 2026 at the West Banco Arena. Plan the trip now. Welcome to the SQOLOGY podcast. We are joined today by Jeffrey Hald. Hello, Jeffrey.
Hey there.
And as usual, Mike Myers. Hello, Mike.
Hey, how we going?
We're currently in the snow, sleet, water, hail, ice apocalypse, I guess. Jeffrey is in College Station, Texas, and his car appeared to have a nice little sheen of ice on it. I think Mike is mostly getting... rain now? Is this your...
Yeah, it's mostly flooding nowadays.
That can be much worse, actually. And then I got, according to the weather app, we got like 24 inches in the past day of snow. But
good grief.
What's actually there is, it's drivable because it's so cold. Like, it's supposed to be in the negatives, and then it's supposed to be not above freezing for the next week. So that'll probably make things interesting as time goes on. Probably much worse. But as of right now, it's just a bunch of fluffy snow. So I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, as long as I don't, release this in July, then that will be relevant. Anyway, thanks for joining us. I know, Jeffrey, we've had you on a couple times, primarily when you kind of first started total tuning, and it's kind of interesting to think back on it now because right when you launched total tuning, then it seemed like there was half a dozen other services that popped up at the same time.
Yeah.
And I know Mike has a shop and has been doing tuning for a long time, but I would say right now it seems like you two are probably the most prolific in your own ways as far as tuning goes. I know, Jeffrey, you haven't slowed down any on the remote tuning. Miguel was probably one of your bigger, at least visually, one of your biggest, I guess, other people out there doing that, but now actually he's in College Station. I think he's not really tuning professionally anymore as much, and some of the other stuff out there has died off a little bit. But from your angle, I know you've made changes and learned things throughout, and you've done constant, iterations on how you send out the product and what you're sending to people and everything else. But I guess from your angle, how has that growth been over the past, I guess, couple years since you started all this?
Yeah, it's been very good, pretty steady. The first year, I think I did 70 something. I think I'm up to a little over 300 now. So a little over double what I did last year. Those are total tunes, no pun intended.
Right.
So basically, last time we talked, I think I had 3 or 4 maxes total. I'm up to 9 right now, buying my 10th from Hawaii here probably in the next couple weeks. Got number 11 scoped out as well. So I think that'll be a good number for me to hold on to for a little while. That'll let me do upwards of 4 a week. I can do, 4 to 5 a week every single week and have a spare laying around, which comes in handy every now and then. So, yeah, no, as far as the iterations, you're absolutely right. I've changed a lot of my methods, competition driven, things like that, just kind of optimizing curves, optimizing the way that you place microphones, which is a huge deal. I actually want to do a personal video on that here soon, talking about the different ways on where aiming microphones and how many microphones and how that affects your measurements. The same vehicle with different, measurements basically can greatly skew some things. Done a lot of work recently to make it to where it's easier to do the tunes. I used to require 2 computers. I've put a lot of money into making to where I can send out a second screen, all the necessary cables for every single possible iteration of a laptop. And so one computer does it all kind of thing.
Nice.
It's been great. And, managed to do all that while keeping the price pretty steady, which I'm pretty proud of. So just trying to keep as many happy clients as I can, 300 so far. So yeah, pretty happy with it.
Where have you seen your mix as far as the people you're doing tunes for? Is it, because when you first kind of announced things and I saw what you were doing compared to other people, I saw a lot of potential market with like other dealers, essentially, where there would be other professionals in the field, but so many of them just really aren't able to get to that next level, but also might have a Mac sitting there already, or be using the VXI product or whatever that you can kind of tap into easily with what you're doing. But what have you seen as far as mix between like the serious competitor versus the the guy who just bought a system and wants it versus the shops? I mean, what's been your mix?
Yeah, so I'm tuning for 6 shops right now, pretty regularly, like, one a week, one every other week kind of deal. And they love having me, so that's been working out. And obviously that's a non-rental unit, so that means that they have their own unit, and my 9 floating around as necessary to individuals, not to shops. I've seen the ratio of competitor people versus individuals that just like good sound. Obviously, you're going to have a lot more individuals than competitors. Not that I ever targeted competitors per se. I was just targeted, just trying to get a good 80-90% tune very quickly, very reliably. And, I have worked with competitors, as you know, just to get them over hurdles, get them on podium, even without meeting them. But the main purpose and the main, vision for Total Tuning has never been, I'm going to toss these microphones in once, never listen to it, never shake your hand and expect it to win finals. I just expected it to be better than what most shops were giving, excluding guys like, Mike and the dozen or, 15 other tuners around the nation that are capable of producing a great sounding vehicle. There's a vast number that can't. And a lot of them are great at install, but, and Mike, hopefully you can chime in on this. I think that the amount of people that can produce a great install with the right install knowledge, with the right product knowledge, and then finish it up with a great sounding tune, it's nowhere near enough. So that's what I was targeting.
Yeah. I think it's a great service, honestly. And the way that you partner with other shops, I think is a really smart service, because I think that Clifton is right. There's probably quite a few shops that probably have a Max that intended on learning to use it, but maybe they haven't put the time or the practice in to get really good at it. And, having you, log in and tune it for them kind of gives them, number one, a visual aid, and then a great benchmark to try to achieve, whenever they're practicing with their own stuff. But to mirror what you just said, you're right. Unfortunately, there's not enough shops that I've seen that can produce a really high fidelity sound on the first go round in a reasonable amount of time. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's lack of education or lack of practice, or maybe they don't understand what a high fidelity sound is, or a mix of all of it. I'm not really sure, but I think that's a cool way to help those guys out.
Yeah, it's been fairly good. I mean, I've got some guys in Valdosta, Georgia. I've got some guys in Ohio, guys in Kentucky, a couple in Denver, one in Florida, and it works out really well, because there's actually a few of them advertise me and say, Jeffrey Hald's going to log in, and a few of them call it their house tune. I don't care either way. I just want to make sure that the end result is good, because, and I think I said this on the previous podcast, but I still believe it to this day, is that the dying off of audio is because people are getting better sound out of their factory systems when, guys like myself or Mike Myers or the dozen or so other people, we can produce something that sounds infinitely better than, the OEM systems. And that's what people want when they spend 10, 20 grand,
Yeah. It's much more difficult nowadays to achieve something that's actually a better sounding than the higher end OEM systems that you can find these days. A lot of people that try to just rip all the speakers out and replace them and slap a 5-channel amp in there and then hope that it's going to be better. That's just really not a good way of making it actually sound better. So So I think maybe they just don't understand what they're dealing with signal wise, or what they need to try to achieve sound wise. I'm not sure, but it's good to see that you're helping a lot of those guys out with that. It's a cool service. As
Yeah.
you know, people have to come to me if they want me to tune it. I don't really have the time to travel a bunch, or I'm not really great with the remote tuning. I already do enough traveling with judging, so if you
Yeah.
want me to tune it, you're going to have to bring it to my shop.
Well, and I tell people all the time, without you knowing, possibly, I use you as a reference. Like, if you want to talk about someone that's great at tuning and great at judging, you're one of the people that I constantly point to. So, whenever I have someone even within a couple 100 miles of your area, with like, the development of the, WCA, MCA, ECA kind of thing, and I'm just like, hey, after this, go to a show. Who's the judges? Okay, listen to that judge, listen to this judge, and I'm constantly encouraging people to go to shows after the tune that I do, because their first question, or the first day, it's always, oh, it's perfect, and then they get to listen to it, and then they go, I heard this. How can we
Right.
improve this? And I go, well,
Yeah.
I'm not there. I could probably pick it out, but the whole crux of this is that it's remote, so that it's a lot less expensive, and so that it's a lot, more convenient for you. But at the same time, we can get those results if you just simply go to some of these events, whatever the org is, listen to these judges. They have great ear. It's very consistent. You go and get that feedback, and then, I've talked with them enough. I can probably apply the changes necessary to get us pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever find yourself, do you have a difficulty sometimes trying to get an idea of what sound a customer wants to be able to hit that target?
So I think that there's only been 3 or 4 that have almost stumped me. I'll say almost, because I did end up making them happy, and they did end up doing public reviews and all that just to support that. But for the vast majority, I use the same curve that I do for a competition vehicle. It's specific to the way that I set my microphones and all of that with Max. We've had obviously conversations about that in person.
Yeah.
With microphone position and things and curves. But, basically I started out with, let's just say curve TT for total tuning, right? So,
Yeah.
and then, they give their feedback, and those couple people that I'm talking about, I would end up either messing with virtual, if it's a Helix or a ARC product, use the universal in the front or whatever, and get close to what they want. Or sometimes I've even had one where he made a tune sound tonally like he wanted. He just couldn't make it image or stage or any of that, and had phase all messed up and all kinds of stuff. So what I would do is I would just say, okay, cool, put my microphones in, put them in the way that I prefer to have them, let me measure it, and then it's just redefine my target. If my target's, X, Y, and Z, make it this curve instead, and then just reset up my individual targets, and away I go. It's the same process. It's just a different target on the screen. And, funny enough, I've actually had those couple people that I'm referencing. One of them's in Washington. He has his own special curve, and I was actually able to use that curve on another guy in New York, funny enough. He liked the same thing. He had very similar words on my stock curve, saying that he wanted a lot more energy, like not 3 or 5 dB. I'm talking about like 10 dB more energy below 400 hertz. And like just wanted this enormous amount of lower mid-range male vocals, mid-bass, just super thick drums, all that stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I happen to have a curve that a gentleman vetted with me that said similar things. Let's try it. And so I just quickly redid it, and we didn't spend a whole lot of time on imaging. And he goes, oh yeah, that's what I'm after. Okay, cool. Now let's refine your imaging.
Yeah. I always found, for most people that that come to us for tuning, I use the same target. But every once in a while, you'll have a person that came to us for tuning that was suggested by somebody else, but they're not really like a sound quality type of person. And then I'll tune it, and then I send them in the car, take a listen to it, see what you think. And they're like, well, can we add more bass? I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's easy enough. And then, like, can we add more treble? Yeah, I can do that, and then you're like, okay, we're getting a little far away from where, I would call it, really good. But as long as they're happy, the other third person has to pay for it and drive it around and be happy. So I don't really care. I don't really care what it sounds like, other than I want them to be very happy with what the finished product is,
Yeah, and I think it sounds like we both have similar experiences. One out of 100 or 1 out of 200 is like that for me personally, where it's like my normal curve doesn't satiate, but the techniques are still the same. What microphone you use, or what songs you like to listen to, or whatever, or however you get images to line up. All of that's the same at that point. It's just tonal preference.
Right. Yeah, that's. I just wondered how much that you run into. So it seems like it's not very often. Same with us. So that's pretty cool. Now, as far as, I'm sure that you've changed like the microphone array over what the stock, just like bar thing is.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you can disclose or you just wanted to do your own video for that, or?
No, I'm happy to talk about it. So I mean, it's no secret that I've found success with the Mark Eldridge array. Very similar design when set up right, because you can put all the mics on the top, which is one way that Mark does it. We've kind of played around. I have my own version of it. I actually set them up a little bit more like a Getty's array, where they're split higher and lower. And the goal is basically, for me at least, to spread them out as much as possible, to get as much height variation as possible. Because I give you a great example of body types here. Guys like Harry Kamira and guys like Tim Gowdy are similar heights, but they have very different torsos. And I've noticed that when I use the bar array that originally came with Max, not talking bad about it, it's very space efficient, but you didn't get the forgiveness on your height variances there because you didn't spread out the mics enough. So you're super critical on where you place your listeners. Of course, it's going to sound great using an array that's tighter focused, but if you spread them out like Natons, or just any mic array where they're spread farther out, particularly from a lower in the front, taller in the back kind of motion, and then using a reference mic kind of in the middle, depending on the person, depending on the technique, it normally works pretty well.
Yeah. That seems like a pretty good way to do it, because it's rare that you would have. I mean, it's pretty easy to have different size people, listeners as far as height wise, but it'd be really weird to have someone sitting like left of center or something weird like that, unless you're at SVR. But
gotta bring that up.
But
so I mean,
that's between y'all.
But that was but that seems like a pretty wise decision. So went to basically all the finals. You went to the MCA finals, the Aggie Light.
Mm-hmm.
How was that?
It was fantastic. I really like ICA as an org. I think that there's a lot of good things about it. I think that there's obviously improvements that every org can make, but I think that ICA addresses a lot of good things. The classifications are pretty good at spreading people out. I think INT4 is a little light based on normal modifications that I see, but overall, really like it. And Aggie Light was a pretty good success overall. Had a lot of the Texas crew, from all different campfires. There's even in Texas and neighboring regions, there's still little camps of groups of people. But it was lots of fun. I think it was a very, very well done show, as normally with with the people that involve themselves around the Aggie lands and the Aggie Lights. So including all the judges. So I think the judges always do a great job, and the support staff, organization, all that. Obviously, there was a lot of awards handed out for the people there, and I was very happy to get the David Seal Award, which was the MCA Cup. So that was super just flattering. So honoring such an awesome dude. Anyone that doesn't know David Seal, he was pretty much as good as they came. So
Pretty cool award. It's the highest scoring car at the finals event.
yeah, I mean,
So
I've
great work.
got that one up top. I'm working on the new shelves and clearing space for this upcoming year, and that one's hopefully I get my name on that one the second year because I kind of like having it around. So
I don't want to give it back, so I just got to win it again.
I'm just gonna have to keep doing well because I don't want to give it back.
Yeah, there's a few people in your area rebuilding. I think they're coming for you.
Oh no, there's always been a couple key areas of the country, and I'm very happy to be in the Texas region, one of the key areas in my opinion. Lots of good cars, again, from those multiple campfires that I was referencing, but there's a lot of good cars.
Yeah.
And just around my campfire, we've got we haven't officially announced it and had our jackets shown off at a show together yet, but we've got a team of 13 that we're all kind of trying to organize and spread across classes and help each other rebuild and tuning and all that fun stuff. So
cool.
It'll be lots of fun. This will be a great year coming up.
Well, you've done a great job. Your car sounds excellent.
Thank you. Working on some rebuild stuff on it. It's funny to say that. You always think that it's done, and then like you get your finals information back or your paperwork back from at least this past year was Birmingham, or whether if it's your MCA finals or whatever, and it's like, well, I can improve that, and next thing you know, I've got a list on my phone. So
yeah, I've not heard a perfect car yet.
Yeah, one day there will be a perfect car. I don't know how, I don't know when, but we'll find out.
Yeah,
probably not in our lifetimes.
Yeah. It's tricky. The limiting factor is always the size of the car. That's always
And funny enough, I've actually found some interesting information on that. I'm a little on the nerdy side, and I like to play around with some stuff like that. Had a 120 hertz cancel on a Dodge Challenger that I was tuning, and or not cancel, it was a boost, and it had kick panel mid basses, and I'm like, there's nothing in the car, there's no dash, like we're putting foam places to find the reflection so that he can build the dash where he wants to. Right. And the mid bass response, I'd send you the graph here after we're done. It was absolutely perfect. It looked like a trace. It just had like this little bump at 120. Like, well, you could definitely EQ that. It's only like 2 or 3 dB, but I want to find out what it is. So naturally, me being me, I play around with a couple things. Okay, it's not the floor. It's not this. It's not that. I get a hunch. I go grab 3 big ass pillows off of my master bed and I throw them on his rear deck and it fixes it. So in that particular car, it happened to be the rear deck.
Interesting.
Yeah.
They just load a certain way. But I mean, like spaciousness and stuff like that, it's still kind of, most cars are kind of confined, to the car. I mean, they reach out a little bit and stuff like that. But, I've heard people say, the vocalist is way out past the hood and all this kind of stuff. And, I've never heard that. And I've heard almost every single car in the country now.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can extend some boundaries. For
sure. But it's not like, it's not immense. That's always the hard part,
Yeah. I think the difference between a okay tune and a great tune is like, pillar to pillar versus 2 inches outside the pillar in each direction, or depth is base of the windshield versus halfway down the hood, and like that's pretty much as far as I've seen personally. I'm not sure if you agree, but
that's about as far as of a distance to stage as I've ever heard.
But yeah,
and so much that's perceptual. It's hard to say that in terms of physical boundaries, that's actually happening. It's just like, well,
that's just how I interpret it.
Sounds like, and what is out of phase versus what's in phase. But
yeah, that's just how I've interpreted it. But I'm happy to be surprised this next season. I can't wait to hear even bigger and better things from everybody. So that'll be a lot of fun. So after that, you went to, Birmingham, compete in, IASCA, EMA, MASQ. Did you do Mecca at that one?
I didn't do Mecca at that one.
Okay. So how was that event for you?
It was very good. The judging staff always are great, and all the orgs were pretty well run. I didn't, their finals of years past have ran super late for this reason or that reason, and still judging at 7 p.m. and all that fun stuff. But everything was on running at a pretty good click. I think I had something obscene like 14 judges to do over the weekend. So, I regrettably had to turn away. I didn't necessarily turn away. I just said, like, I'm not ready yet. Come on back. But I had to turn away some demos because, like, I'm literally getting judged right now, or like,
Yeah.
I know for a fact he's coming right now. So I missed a couple opportunities of people that I've, been always looking forward to meet and all that, and giving them demos. It's one of my favorite things to do is to give demos. But ultimately, when you spend $1,500+ in entries between, all these different orgs, I'm gonna let the judges get in first, and if we have a spare second, you just hang tight. Like, we can talk about whatever you want for the next 8 minutes until he's done, and then we can get in there. I promise. So, but no, it's a fantastic event. I kind of arrived there short of breath, so to speak, in terms of getting everything ready. Some may or may not know, but there was a battery failure in the car like 2 months before finals, and I had to rebuild the entire back half of the car, basically. Every panel, every bolt, every wire, everything got rebuilt. Obscene amounts of hours, obscene amounts of money. The car's worth 6 times over, actually. And yeah, Google what my car is worth, 2016 Mazda 6, and multiply that by about 6. So yeah, but literally put in the last panel at 10:30 p.m. at night, the night before, like Thursday night, and woke up at 3:30 in the morning, like 4 or 5 hours later, and drove to finals. Was rocking the same exact tune that I had from Kicker in June, which would normally be fine, except for the fact that the A-pillars were different, the dash was slightly different, and technically all 5 amplifiers were different amplifiers. They'd all been replaced. So
yeah,
even though they're the same amp, they're not the same amp, kind of thing, as silly as that sounds.
Yeah.
So even though I literally had, if I would have had a few more hours, definitely could have changed some things, but still proud of how everything went down. Proud of the team. Everyone on the team did well. Had a novice card, basically do well in every single org. So pretty much everyone on the team did well, and I was happy just to be there. Fanning away the lithium smell out of my trunk just so no one noticed. But yeah, it was an awesome time. Wouldn't change it for the world, and glad that I was able to attend, make it happen, see everyone, and what was the biggest compliment to me, funny enough, was I'll call Mick Wallace out on this one. He actually didn't even know I mentioned it during my install presentation to him and Tim. And I'm like, yeah, in case you didn't know, it's this one. And I'm pointing out specifics of things that have changed with the car. And he comes up to me afterwards. He's like, what in the were you talking about? I was like, you didn't know the car burned down? It's like, no. Like, yeah, here's a timestamp picture of 2 months ago. Here you go. Look.
That's great.
I think it's a testament to the design that, you've had essentially that build for how long now? And then you went to replace it all and you basically put it back how it was. So at a lot of cost. So, it speaks again to the value of iteration over complete overhaul. You know what I mean? Like, for you be able to go back to where it was and still perform and be there and do what you did. Like, I don't know. It's pretty cool.
It was a story that'll probably be remembered for a while, at least for me. My wife, that always supports me, even told me, like, hey, this is probably too much. Let's just stay home. And I'm like, nope. I'm going to work until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning every single night the next 2 months. I'm going to make it happen, whatever it takes. And so what was really cool for me was, that whole car was built by hand by James Davidson and myself in his driveway and in my driveway 6 years ago. We built it during COVID and released it at Lone Star, if you remember whatever the first Lone Star was, Clifton.
Yep.
So that was the timestamp. If anyone wants to find out exactly when the car was debuted, it was that show. Incomplete, like still missing some panels, but we just did the best we could. Literally everything was built by hand, which means, in the nicest way possible, not every single bolt was perfectly straight. Some were, a 1/16th of an inch off this way, or, they're all straight up and down, but like they're not perfectly symmetrical like they were made with a CNC or a laser. And so, replicating that to the T, because every single part was, handmade with either, welded metal, with, exact bolt holes for that exact panel. And like, now we're taking 3D scans of parts that were burnt and, blown up and trying to figure out how far the bolt, the nutsert moved.
Right.
It was pretty funny, but, the whole team came together. Shout out to, Phil, that's Phil Cantu, Justin Armour, James Davidson, Hunter Brewer, myself, everyone at Mobile Toys that jumped in and helped at the last second. We had 5 or 6 people working on it for almost 3 weeks. And then I had to finish up the rest by myself. So
that's pretty intense.
Yeah, I don't recommend it.
Yeah, I think I would have just been like, no, I'm good.
It might have been easier for just the whole car to go away, honestly.
Yeah.
But no, it was a great show though. And I want to touch on the team for a second because, I the whole week prior, 2 weeks prior, I'm, tuning for other people. And, that's one of the reasons I was so late putting in the last panel. But like just, hey, I just redid this. Can I touch up tune? Can I do this? Can I do that? And that's where the tuning in the airplane post came from. If you guys remember that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was flying home from a wedding and like my schedule's so overbooked it makes you want to cry. And then one of my friends and team members, Jim Rogers, calls me and he's like, "Hey, I'm having trouble with this and that as far as phase and timing goes. Can you log in? I'll set up Max for you." I go, "Jim, I don't know when, dude. Like, I seriously, like, I'm looking at my calendar as I'm on the phone with him. Like, there's just no time." And I'm like, "I got an idea. Why don't you set up Max and I'm going to pay for internet on the plane?" He goes, "You're freaking crazy." I go, "No, I got this. I got this." So next thing you know, it's like, you get to that 10,000 foot, you can use your full size electronics or whatever the hell they say.
Okay, here we go.
I whip out my laptop. My wife is rolling her eyes at me. And I'm just like, "Okay, send me the team viewer login." And tuning from 30,000 feet. He says it was a huge improvement. Great. Close the laptop and finish watching Gran Turismo on the plane. It's great.
That's amazing.
But yeah, the whole team stepped up, and between me doing these random, just trying to help people, and then I was running out of time. And next thing you know, they're printing my install book for me, or they're saving spots. They're helping me detail the car. Like it's something else having a team of people with you. I think that's probably the most important part about finals is just having a group of guys that whatever it takes, we get it done.
Mm-hmm. For sure. That's incredible. So what's your plans for the coming year?
Plans audio wise, pretty much. Actually, let me break out my notepad here. I can briefly read off the stuff. Expert build. So I'm rebuilding the front sub, putting a new carpet kit in the car just because I'm absolutely insane. So I'm going to rip out the factory carpet kit and put in a brand new factory carpet kit. Move the ribbon, highlight it a little bit better. Make a couple like tool kits underneath the front seats, just like little drawers or something. So it's, just little stupid things, but I like tinkering with it. And I think the biggest thing is going to be moving to one of the new Kenwood 8-inch direct replacements, where I want to float one of those up top and rework some controls on the car, like the console controls, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
even had a crazy idea of putting a max permanently in the car, so I didn't have to bring one with me anywhere. I could
Oh,
just,
wow.
roll up, and if I ever needed one's in the car, and push my seat forward or whatever. And there's like all the cables and their own little laser cut foam things and all that. And undecided on that, favoring not, but thought it'd be a cool idea. Just
Yeah.
trying to think of cool things to do, just to maximize points and new creative stuff rather than just presenting the same old build for the 5th year in a row,
Right.
So, and then total tuning wise, just get those couple last maxes and really working on optimization, like website. I've recently made a calendar where people can book their own appointments on my computer and all that stuff. So that's kind of, just figured it out as I went along. But
Nice.
just rebuilding the car and trying to grow total tuning and normal life stuff after that. So
I hear you. What are you planning on event wise?
this year's event list, I know I'm getting ready to head to Sound Paradise, Florida. So
Are you gonna be doing the vendor thing there? Are you competing and vendor, or what are you doing?
that last year I did competing and vendor. This year I'm just competing. I was stretched so thin last year that I didn't normal me. I try to do everything and end up only doing 80% of what I should be doing.
Right.
But I'm just competing this year. Justin Armour and I are coming down and just doing a money round. And after Sound Paradise, we've got Aggieland. Then we've got Kicker, Heat Wave, and the Conway finals. I'll for sure be going to, and then probably some local shows, whatever is whatever supports the team, wherever people need me. Sometimes I meet people at shows to do listening on cars of remote tuned, things like that. So
The South in general is there's not really any excuses for anybody not to be competing this year. it's you're pretty stacked, so
Yeah.
it should be a good year.
lots of good shows this year. I think the sleeper for me is going to be Heat Wave. You think Heat Wave is the big bass show, and that's all it is. But I won't spoil all the surprises. But there's some big things happening, and I think it might even be one of the biggest shows of the year. So
Awesome.
That'd be cool to see.
Yeah, that show used to be huge, and at least on the SQ side, it's been dead for a decade or more. So it'd be good to see it come back.
There's a lot of cool things. I'm pretty sure I can divulge that it's at the Coda track instead of the Travis County Expo. So Coda racetrack, and some things are booked for some high end stuff, and they're trying really hard to make it kind of in the finals meets Expona meets truck show, and then just go all three just now kiss.
Right.
So I think it'll be a good thing, and lots of people are involved. I know there's going to be some cars driving around the racetrack that you can pay some money to get into, so pretty much that count me in on that too.
Right.
Drive around the Coda track. Twist my arm, please.
Right. Yeah, a lot better venue as far as that goes. So it should be.
Oh yeah,
that's cool.
It's going to be awesome.
It'll be neat to see that that show grow, into a larger SQ event like it used to be. Hopefully, you'll have a lot of success with that.
I mean, it's always had a great base following, and I think that the previous way they were hosting it was about as good as it could be, considering there was no sound quality and no home. But this year, with having that big of a venue, if anyone doesn't know how big that racetrack is, it's freaking massive.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to give everyone enough space to do everything, but still take a short golf cart ride to get to the other sections.
Right.
So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You've had a lot of success, throughout the years, and in these recent years with competing and over the course of different organizations and finals and stuff like that. What do you attribute some of that success to?
I think the biggest thing is knowing that there's no perfect way to do something, and knowing that it can always be improved, whether that's your install, whether that's your tune. And I think the biggest thing that I bring to the table for myself is knowing that physical changes are number one. I think that a lot of competitors will reach for the DSP, reach for the computer first thing. Like there's a problem. Well, the first thing I'm reaching for is a piece of foam or re-angle the speaker or move this panel or something. Like I'm always reaching for the physical side of things. Coming from my SPL background, you can't just boost a certain frequency in SPL. It's all cabin gains. It's all physical changes. And I think that, having a fundamentally sound installation with all the things optimized before you even open the processor is by far the most important thing. And if you're hearing something, unless you think it's tune related, it's probably physical.
That's pretty cool. I mean, it looks like you make, small incremental changes rather than, my car didn't score the way I wanted to. Let me throw all the equipment away and start again.
Yeah, that's another big thing. I think that there's a lot of this. This is a hot take, by the way. So I'm not trying to be controversial, but I think that a lot of people will put weight into changing equipment rather than optimizing it. One of them is a guy on my team that shall remain nameless. Sat in your car, Mike, and was instantly just like, well, I got to have everything Mike had. And I go, why? I'm like, no, dude, no. Like, I mean, we can, and there's some benefits to the things that Mike is using in his car. And, he's a smart dude that, he makes a lot work for him with a little. It's not like these over extravagant, crazy dash build cars, but yet somehow they all perform extremely well. But know that copying equipment and just going, well, Bruno's car, Nathan's car, Jeffrey's car, Mike's car, name all, and Brian's car, name all the cars and just go, I want to copy whatever they did. Well, no, again, SPL background. If I copy your build, Mike, say you're doing 150 dB in whatever clamped class, whatever you're doing. If I copy your build, the only thing I can hope to do is get exactly 150. I can't improve past that. And, if I change the subwoofer every single week trying to hunt more than 150, chances are you've already had the good subwoofer in this analogy, and you're going backwards or you're going lateral. You're not making good changes. Your equipment is important, but you can do a lot with a little. And I think, you're the poster child of that, with all of your builds. They're just so damn good and they're so simple at the same time.
Well, that's because I can't do anything complicated.
Can't even screw a mid-range down on a dash. So,
dude, I'm telling you, just gotta use some sound deadener, hold it down.
Just
but
seal it.
That's the biggest thing. Is I think that once people have a fairly good product, whether this brand or that brand or mixing multiple brands or whatever it is, I think a lot of it's install and tune. And I've had a lot. I think that's been my biggest pushback from the internet in the past couple of years, is being vocal about that, and then them going like, no, this and that and the other thing. And I go, I mean, yeah, those help, but get your fundamentals right. If you think, if anyone can tell me, if anyone can look me in the face and tell me their car is perfectly optimized and their tune is perfectly optimized, look in the mirror. Get a hard look there, because it's not.
And I completely agree with that. I mean, equipment obviously matters, to a degree. Yep. You need something that's competent and, can get the frequency range that you're looking for, at whatever volume you're looking for, and so on and so forth. But beyond that, like equipment that you choose, like brands don't matter as much, as far as I would say the ability to extract every last bit of sound. Mm-hmm. What I end up finding is the brands that I choose are brands that partner with me and our shop and are supportive of us and our hobby, is much more valuable than trying to chase like the highest end, most expensive piece of equipment. Because if I ever have a question or need something else, or God forbid break something, then these partners that I've that I've built, as part of our team over the last years, then, they're vested in us, we're vested in them. And that means a lot more than trying to chase like the highest, distortion rate on your amplifier or whatever. So
Yeah. And I don't know if you've seen it in your shop, Mike. I've seen it a lot lately. I had 2 last week where people send me entire email quotes from literally copy and paste ChatGPT. And like, I want the this and that, and like you can just tell by the way it's written that it's ChatGPT. And I'm like,
yeah.
I actually called one of them out on him, like because he asked for a a JL something, like it was an amplifier that didn't exist. It was a VX. It was just ChatGPT making up stuff. It was a speaker that didn't exist, a plug and play harness that didn't exist, with an amplifier that didn't exist, and I want a direct quote for exactly this. And I go, well, Mr. So and so, none of those products actually exist. Out of curiosity, where did you come up with that research? Did this happen to be AI? And he goes, yes, I use AI to start all my conversations. I go, okay, well, this will be fun. So.
I had a guy bring a vehicle that he had sort of tuned using, AI as like, where to set your crossovers and what to type in for delays and all that kind of stuff. And that was pretty interesting.
I've had one of those too. I've seen one of those. It's funny to have that parallel.
Yeah. Well, AI's got a long ways to go.
I think it's getting worse, actually. I feel like
in cars yet.
Yeah. It sure like can't hear.
Yeah, I can't hear at all.
Yeah, but
it does give some interesting feedback if you try shooting it some RTA feedback and say, okay, what do I do with this now? And then it's like,
yeah, I think maybe they're not asking the right questions or something,
yeah,
but I don't know.
I would agree. I've got mine set up to where like you can set custom prompts, and I've got mine set up to where I say, be my own worst enemy, argue with me every chance you get, do not agree with me, poke holes in every single thing that I say.
Right.
And then I just sit there and ask it questions back and forth. And it's more about leading me to the right answer rather than me asking it for the answer.
Right. And then research it when you're done, because because it's probably wrong on.
Oh yeah,
no specifics, but it could definitely be a useful tool, and I think it's we'll see how it goes. It depends on where the money leads, so we'll see if it gets better or worse over time, I guess.
Right? Yeah, it'll just lead to more advertisements, honestly.
Yeah, probably.
The amount of AI videos I've seen of car wrecks and snow this past weekend has been hilarious. And I know they're fake because the cars flip upside down and there's no
and
wheels.
then they run out of it.
That's funny.
From a competitor standpoint, there's been, I think most of the major shows have been announced with dates and places and times and judges and everything else. I have my own thoughts on parts of things and whatever, but what are your thoughts being in the industry and as a competitor and working with a lot of newer competitors, and that what can those of us like me myself as a lowly one event 2 event director, but on top of that the people who might be listening who are running finals and other big events and everything else, and then the judges like Mike and others. I mean, what can, from your perspective, what can we do to serve the that community better, you guys as competitors?
Yeah, how do we make it better? How do we get more people?
And I think that's a great question. I've put a lot of thought into this. There's been some recent discussions on that topic, and regarding this org or that org, and not going into specifics like that, but I'll give my take on how it's all kind of structured and how I think it would be better suited. I think we need to define the types of shows. Number one, is it a competitor show or is it a sales show? Competitor shows, meaning it's the same 100 people. We all know each other, whether we like each other or we don't. We all know each other's first and last name. We all know each other's vehicles. We know the whole build about the other person, right? It's a competitor show. It's all the same people going around the country, getting rejudged, improving, blah, 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 blah. The sales shows, in my definition, are the ones where, your Sound Paradise, your Heat Waves, your Exponas, your I'm sure there's others where there's an event mirroring the sound quality show, or joining, or whatever you want to say, and the purpose is to expose high-end cars, these great sounding vehicles, to the world. To people with similar interests. Maybe their interest is lifted trucks. Maybe their interest is high-end home stereos. Maybe their interest is insert hobby A, right? Or just people that are at least middle of the road finance wise or better, and have the funds to put into something like this whole called car audio, right? But defining whether if it's a sales event or a competitor event, number one. Number two, and I think that if you have only sales events or only competitor events, the industry is going to slow down and die. A great example is, I think in the past few years, we've had an overabundance. 95+% of the shows have been competitor events, which is great. We all get to stand around and sing Kumbaya and listen to each other's cars, but there's no new growth there unless you're actively bringing people in. I know a few people in the industry do. I know you do, Mike. I do. I know Brian Mitchell does. A few other people in the industry are bringing new people in, but that's onesie, twosie stuff. Me working as hard as I can, I'll bring in 2 or 3 last year, and that's it. We need dozens and dozens and dozens. And so I think what happens, in a very, very bad analogy that I haven't put enough thought into, your sales events are kind of like where you get your seeds planted into the ground, right? This person that's never seen this or never heard this or thought that it was just a bunch of boom boom cars sits in this and goes, holy hell, this is amazing. That seed is planted. Okay, but just having the seed planted, and then you go to a local shop or whatever, you go to a high-end shop, you send your car across the country to have someone very good build it, whatever you do, now you get your car back. Now what do? Well, they're not passionate about car audio competition. And yeah, you got them to spend 5, 10, 20, 30 grand one time, but that's very different than what we do as an industry and how we, are constantly working on that pipeline. And so your competitor events are where your sunshine and water come into play. You've got these seeds in the ground from the sales events, and then you have your local events, your competitor events, where there's no other sales tactics, there's no booths, there's no anything where you're talking to the immense public. You're only talking to people that came there for a sound quality car show. Maybe they have a car, maybe they don't, but it's still a very small amount of people, very intimate, and very direct in what the approach is. So that's where they go and get their judging feedback, and then they find their local tuner. That's when they start working on their tune, staying on their tune, improving the install. And then this passion starts burning in them. In the metaphor, the water and the sunshine starts to take effect. The plant starts to grow. And then all of a sudden, they're I'm mirroring my story, basically. I went to a sound quality show, and then I cultivated myself into, deep into the competition scene, right? It took a couple of years to cultivate that, but it didn't happen because I went to Knowledge Fest and stood in front of a booth and talked for hours. It didn't happen because I was at an event like Sound Paradise talking to home audio people. That's the seeds. The cultivation of it is going to your Aggielands, going to your SVRs, going to your Pigeon Forges, going to your local events that are 1X, 2X, and getting judges' feedback and seeing improvements. And we all have the same mentality for the most part. We want to improve. We're perfectionists in some way, or we just love audio, or a combination of all of it. And these local events or your big regionals are going to be how you get these passionate people passionate enough and dedicated enough to go to your big events, to go to your very expensive $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 final events, where I mentioned on Facebook that finals at Birmingham was almost double what my last 2 vacations were scuba diving for a week.
Right.
And it was a weekend that I get to go sit and listen to 14 people tell me how much my car freaking sucks. Like,
pay for the privilege.
Think about that for a second. Like, well, what would I rather do? Go spend 2 weeks in Mexico with my wife, or go get yelled at by 14 people telling me my car sucks? So, but I think that's my biggest hot take on that, is just knowing that we have to define it as 2 separate events, and they're both important. They both mirror each other. And without both, the pipeline dies. You have a bunch of seeds in the ground that never grow, or you have a bunch of overgrown plants with no new plants. So
do you think those two style of events need to stay separate in their own lanes to certain, because I guess my view would be like what you just said about, like going to Florida soon, you're going there just to be a competitor versus, trying to do both. The reason I do what I do as far as, this and the event promotion and everything else for the past decade or more is because I don't have I can't handle the anxiety of being a competitor.
Yeah.
And for me, being at an event where I'm asked to, and I've demoed, like I've ran demo cars at Knowledge Fest and CES and other places where I've given, literally hundreds of demos in a weekend and selling car audio, right?
Yeah.
But to do that and compete would kill me, So, it seems to me like it almost needs to be like a very carefully curated number of cars and people that are working the selling events that are, essentially, commercializing this to a certain degree, but, it really working your ass off, doing the demos, being able to explain it, having the personality to pull it through, knowing the source material and being able to talk somebody through a demo and everything else. All of that is an art in its own. And then, also have the events where you're there to do nothing but compete, like Aggieland, for example. I'd say that, Aggieland is probably the purest form of that because there is no vendors, there is no sponsorships, it's you're there and you're doing nothing but competing for the lot of time, and then you go from there.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts as far as, does it need to be more, each need to be more focused, or does it need, or the opposite, does it need more crossover? Do we need it all together? I don't know.
I think that having it all together, like in my mind, and again, there's going to be people that disagree with me. I spoke with one org owner a couple nights ago that probably would disagree with this, but I think that competitive car audio and the sales events it's not going to be as good of a result as your dedicated SQ finals, your SVR, your Aggieland, where they're competitor events, in my opinion. And you can try and crush out the judging the day before, or you can try and, do the judging in between. But realistically, the way that I would do it if it was me is I would, have the best cars, the 10 or 20 best cars, invite them, like pretend it's a manufacturer booth at Knowledge Fest, or, Master Tech or something, where,
right,
the expenses are paid for these 10 or 20 cars. Their job is to represent the brand, aka 12 volt, aka the org, the company that their car mostly has, or whatever the case may be. But those are the sales events, and there's 3, 5, 6 of those a year. These big events with 3, 5, 10,000 people all at the event, all selling to these people, essentially getting them into car audio. But then we have to have those separate competitor only things, your local shows and your regional shows, and maybe a group finals. I think group finals is great personally, but I won't get into that. But having those big regionals, having your local shows where they can go and dip their foot in, having a nice easygoing factory locations class where a super positive, supportive judge is going to hop in there and go, hey, you did all these great things. This is what I found bad, but is this your first show, by the way? Great job. Shake their hand. Next thing you know, they're coming to another show. They're coming to another show past that. And so you have to cultivate that. I think it should be 5, 6 sales shows to, 50 competitor shows. And I'm not saying all big ones like Aggieland, but, there needs to be 2 or 3 or 4 regional ones within 200 or 300 miles. Because here's the deal. These big shows, if you live across the country, right? Pretend you're California or, Virginia or something and you want to come to Heatwave, or pretend you're, all the way in Arizona and you want to go to Expona. Like that's a long, long drive, right? And there's plenty of people that'll do it. There's people with the means, there's people with the PTO, with the money, with the time, with the passion that will make those events come hell or high water. Doesn't matter if they have to travel 5,000 miles round trip. They will do it. We know some of them. We're friends with, all three of us are friends with some of them.
Right.
But having those people at the sales events and having the local events where your weekend warrior that has kids, as a family that doesn't have time to take PTO off, can drive 100 miles or 150 miles to a local good event where there's 15, 20, 30 cars. That is huge. It gives that's what grows the industry. It's not the big events alone. It's not the competitor events alone, because the competitor events will, I've had the same judge for the past 2 years. I'm going to go ahead and skip out of that.
Right.
I think California is a great example of that. I'm not calling any names, but there's 70 or 80 great vehicles in California, but only 10 or 15 come out typically. They're in the local events, but they're not in the big regional events.
Right.
So I think having that constant pipeline flow feeding each other, where your sales events feed new people for the small events to cultivate, and the small events to pick out the exceptional ones to feed into the regionals, where the regionals get to pick a finals and so on. Like that's how the cycle works, in my opinion, differing from some others, but that's my 2 cents on it.
No, I agree. And from an industry standpoint, then, as far as, with total tuning is your thing that you're working with people on, plus obviously you work with Mobile Toys and then MTI as a brand, which, all you kind of are very multifaceted there, more than most in that regard. And I'll give my 2 cents on this part, and then I want you to reflect and see, where your thoughts are. But a lot of people look, when these discussions come up, especially around like the various car audio finals and bigger events and everything else, everybody is immediately on track for wanting to get the car audio brands involved. It seems like there's this constant thing where, well, we need the car audio brands there because that's what makes it big, blah, blah, blah. That's what brings foot traffic. That's this and that. And, my pushback a little bit, because, back in the day, people would reference like Spring Break Nationals, in the 90s and early 2000s a lot. And they'll reference like Eurofinals, the EMA Eurofinals, because there's such a big brand presence there. But in both of those cases, like at Spring Break, I was there competing, and we were in a field in the back, and then all the brands were in the air conditioned building up front. But those people stopped there; they weren't coming back in the actual tents and lanes in the field to check out the competitors. Like, we were all still pretty much amongst ourselves. Eurofinals, for one thing, you happen to have, they don't have like a multi-international knowledge fest or master tech like we do. You know what I mean? So when it comes to getting people from Russia to Germany to the UK to here to there all under one roof, it's a very rare event. So in a lot of ways, all those manufacturers coming into Eurofinals, they're not there for the competitors. They're not, and there's very little foot traffic as far as that goes. I would say Aggieland has more foot traffic to the competitors than Eurofinals even. It's still mostly competitors talking to competitors back in the lanes, but the manufacturers are there because they're able to network with all the key countries.
Yeah.
And you have Asian judges coming over, even though it's the Eurofinals. You have, and there also, you have a huge crossover of people who are running IMMA in their country, and they're also major distributors. So you have, that there's, they're involved with IMMA and they're involved in the industry. So, somebody who runs IMMA in XYZ country may also be a large distributor for Audio Tech Fisher. So being there and discussing, they're there to sell and turn big money. They're not there to go, oh, hey, competitor who already knows us. That's the hard part. Like, just like we know each other, none of these brands are getting quote unquote exposure for being there.
Yeah.
And in many of these cases, as far as like when brands get involved in the U.S. events, it's while you might donate, basically it turns into like car audio charity to a certain degree, because it's like, okay, I'll put my brand on there to feel better about myself. Thanks.
Yeah.
I know more of these people than you do, by the way, but you know what I mean? So what?
Yeah.
But then comes the if I'm going to go there, set up a booth, do all this, like all that costs way more money than just the money that was laid out to be there. So let's say it's $500, $1,000, $1,500, $5,000 for a booth. If I'm going to be there and do all that, now I got to fly there. I got to get a crate of stuff there. I got to, set up a banner. I got to think about what I'm going to do. I got to get a hotel. I got to get, that just like competing at finals, doubles or triples, it's one of those things where the entry fees are big, but then depending on where you're going, you might spend 2 or 3 times that just in travel and being there, plus the time lost, the money lost. I mean, you figure just an event like Aggieland, the shop basically closing down for a day during that day and a half during that time is a huge loss of money, much less everything else. You know what I mean? So, but what are your thoughts from an industry standpoint on what we do or do not need to do in that regard to tie things together? Or do you think like the home audio shows, I mean, I think are a great example of something that's more of a hybrid that's going out there to reach a new audience. But then what we do about our own, like, you got the Kicker show, things are involved there. I think you went there. I have not been there, so I can't speak to that. Maybe I'm not seeing more out there, but what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that having been to later age SBN 2 or 3, 5 years before it was shut down, I went there originally, this is like 2010, so it's not, prime SBN per se, but there's still car audio competition going on there.
Yeah.
SPL and sound quality.
Yep.
I couldn't even find the sound quality cars. Like and yeah, maybe, I'm, young, dumb, 18-year-old, sure, but I couldn't even find them. I was looking around the building.
They're behind the building in the gravel.
I know.
Exactly.
And yeah. So, but I sure as hell found all the manufacturer booth inside in the AC with those demo cars.
Right.
So that's why I'm a fan of not having the competitions, at least not like a giant one, maybe a super niche one where, the 10 best of best cars show up, we judge them super quick in a 4-hour period, and then we stick them in booths, right?
Right.
But it's a sales event.
Yeah.
The SBN, in my head, RIP to SBN, it was a sales event. It's less about it being SBN. It's more about it involving planting more seeds, right? I'm the child of that. I wanted to get into car audio so damn bad. And then I find, oh God, I've got a 3.5-hour drive up to Daytona. Hey Dad, can I borrow your truck? I want to go listen to car audio stereos. And he thought that I was crazy, but yet I showed up. Right. It's a planting seeds event. Right. And I think that the manufacturers, whether it doesn't matter who it is, should be reaching out to these cars in the nation and trying to make their booths look super attractive to help plant those seeds, to help sell stuff. And, maybe the person doesn't know anything about the brand and their job is to just demo. Or, like when I go to Knowledge Fest for JL Audio, I happen to know a good bit about the brand, so I can talk pretty much about anything. Right. But I'll still pass it off to the JL Audio people with JL Audio shirts on. We're there to sell stuff. We're there to get people excited about something. We're there to show off something. We're not there to talk about competing.
Yeah.
And then your events like Aggieland, it's mostly shop funded with a few sponsors. I don't know all the details behind that, but there's no like gigantic sponsors stepping in as far as I know, 10, 20 grand sponsors putting up all the prize money. No. I know for a fact that Chris comes out of pocket on at least some of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like you said, taking time off the store, we spend a day cleaning the store,
right?
With 30 people, staff, just cleaning the store and making sure that it's presentable for everyone. All of this comes at huge cost, but it's a competitor event. And that's where we should have serious judging. So I think as far as, sponsorships and getting growth in there, if you do get a chance, that kicker show is probably one of the better ones that I've ever been to. Had scheduled SPL time, a scheduled, car show time, scheduled sound quality time, people walking around from all three facets, which all three of us know that's very rare when people are constantly walking around.
Right.
Those breaks allowed people to get away from their sections. The sound quality people walked over to the SPL side when it was SPL time.
Yeah.
The SPL guys were walking over to sound quality time when it was time for them to shut the stereos off, the loud stuff. So I think that was a well orchestrated show. And I think that if you are going to host a big hybrid show, look at what Kicker did, because they held a first class event. If you want to look at a dedicated competitor show, look at, Aggieland. I think it's a first class event. And it's not because I work there. It's just a very well run event with great judges. And, there's this huge, camaraderie and some rivalries. And there's, a little tension at the end where there's, 10 people standing up and who's in the top 10 and all that's nice and fun. It's called competing.
Right.
But there's never a, at least maybe not never, but out of the 42 cars that competed last year at Aggieland or whatever it was, how many of them stepped up and had a dozen new people come in? Right. They didn't leave Aggieland and go, oh my God, you got to try this.
No,
it was a competition event.
Yeah.
It wasn't a sales event.
Correct.
When you leave SBN, when you leave, hopefully Heatwave this year, when you're at Expona or Sound Paradise and these people experience this for the first time, they're going to get interested. That's where the manufacturer money should be at. And then your local events, it turns into charity / shop funded / competitor funded. I think the competitor funded thing's a good idea where, 20% or 10% of all entries are your cash prize, your money round. And that's how we're funding this,
Right.
And I think that that's how it needs to be structured. I don't run any of these events. I've never run a single one. I've only competed with them. So I'm definitely coming from a place of ignorance on this. But hopefully not all of that is completely misguided. And, hopefully other people that may listen to this find value in some of these things. So
what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think some of those larger, sales type events of the past had a larger reach than what the manufacturers understood. Sure, you had, at face value, a lot of competitors, which those aren't, they sort of are customers, but they're not. They're asking for stuff for discounted rates and stuff like that. They're not really where you're making any money. But they have normal consumers, that come through the booth. But I think also another big value that people didn't understand is that shops and stuff that came to those events, it got them excited about wanting to build or sell this type of stuff in a way that, later that became more like a knowledge fest and stuff like that, which is cool, but there's not a lot of extra effort put into, like the demos and the booths and there's not as much excitement, as it used to be for that type of thing. And I think that's something that some of these partnerships with the home audio type shows or something, I would love to see, a more of a car audio based one come back. I don't know that anyone would ever agree to do something like that, but I think it would be really cool to have, they have these huge home audio expos. Why can't someone do a car audio one?
Yeah. I think it definitely could happen, but we have to grow things in the right way, and we have to make sure not to draw unnecessary lines between people. Try to educate and not argue the best we can. Try to make peace with other camps the best we can. Try to get manufacturers back involved, because ultimately they don't. If they see something negative, they might not get involved.
Yeah. And it could be something that can be attached to something else, like SEMA is a massive event, and it would be, I've never been to SEMA, so I don't honestly know. I can't speak from a ton of experience, but it seems like it'd be easy enough to attach something like that with it to make car audio become more visible. I know it's still kind of for shops and stuff like that, and not super consumer facing, but I think we need some of that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what builds the excitement.
There's a ton of people that are personal individuals at SEMA. I know it's this and that and the other thing, but I'm gonna go ahead and tell you right now, there's more than just shops at SEMA.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's a lot of money at SEMA, and there's that you could walk SEMA every single day, 25,000 steps a day, and still not see the whole damn thing. It would have to take 20 of the best cars in the nation to pool money together with car audio sponsors, making donations or whatever to make the booths happen with the cost of booths there. But it would definitely be a worthwhile event getting in front of the show and shine people, just like Xpona is doing with home audio and Sound Paradise is doing with home audio, like getting in front of these other facets of the same thing.
Yeah.
We all like cars. We all like
cars.
Cars.
Yeah. Could partner maybe with like some of those larger, like Good Guys shows and like, all types of different, automotive type events, because we're all sort of into it in one way or another. And I think there's more interest there than people, might think. And maybe they're not sound quality competitors per se, but, I'm sure they want to hear a great sounding stereo, whatever they think that might be.
Yeah, I run into it all the time. One of my verbatim sales tactics at the shop is I tell people, like, look, I'm a DSP tuner. I don't consider myself a salesperson, but I'll tell you this: if you sit in this particular car outside, you're either going to go, "Oh my God, I got to have it," or "That was really cool. I don't need it." And if "That was really cool, I don't need it," let's put you into some nice speakers with a nice passive amp and a nice bass setup, and you'll be good to go. If "Oh my God, I got to have it," well, congratulations to your new addiction. Come on down to the dark side, and this is where you go to shows after we do your install.
Yeah. Because some people care a lot about great audio, and I've tuned cars where, at the end of it, they listen to it, like, man, it sounds good, but it sounds like everything's just coming out of the center channel. I was like, you don't have a center channel, but okay. They're like, well, I want it like at my house. I'm like, okay, all channel stereos, what you're talking about. And sure, we can just turn the delays off and make it kind of on the sides if that's the way you want it.
Well, and one of the ways that I get around that personally is I tell people that, we can all agree on good sound. We just can't agree on the balance of your front and rear, and we can't agree on the amount of bass, and we can't agree on the maximum SPL level of your sound system.
Yeah.
So, my job is to provide you great equipment and a great tune, a great balanced tune. And your job is to tell me if, what is loud enough for you. And then I'm going to give you everything else you need. I'm going to give you as much volume as you want. I'm going to give you more rear fill than I want, but that's okay. Here's how to turn it down.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you way more bass than you want or I want. But, here's how to turn that down. And by the way, if you find the sweet spot on your rear fill and bass, you could go compete like this without a single preset change. And then they go, oh, wow, really? That's cool. And then they end up railing both of those knobs wide open anyways.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because I've had, out of 10 people, I've had 2 or 3 call back and go, man, you were right. I just turned down the bass just that little bit, or I turned down the rear fill just that little bit, and everything was just better. And I've just grown to love it. So I think rather than making a whole separate preset where there's no delays, I think it's just giving way more rear fill and way more bass can be the middle ground for those types of customers.
Yeah. I'll give it a shot. I mean, yeah. I know all of them want more bass, but
yeah, it's okay. I mean, I try to, I'll basically ignore 25 hertz and down and just say that that's competitor stuff. Like the only people that care about that are competitors, but it very, 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 very little EQ on the bass, and, just try to barely take the tops off of any peaks and give them as much output as they can. And, you need to be able to go from Slaughter to Prevail to Rebecca Pigeon. And that's the way that MTI does it. So,
yeah, I like it.
Jeffrey, a lot of the way you broke that up is good to hear. I think the way you presented it, and I think hopefully, more of us will listen. I mean, I think there's definitely room for, I mean, there's always been multiple orgs in SQ, right? But, we have a lot right now. And I think, the thought pattern is constantly that things need to be the way they've always been. But if there's, opportunity for that growth and diversity, then I think, everybody involved needs to take that to heart and push into it, because, you have people both wanting everybody to keep doing things the way they want them to do it, and they complain about there being so many orgs, and they complain about it being so expensive, and they complain about this and that, and it not being in my home state, and blah blah blah. And so, no matter what you do, there's going to be complaints. I've been, personally, I've been very clear from the beginning of doing this, and I don't plan on changing, I'll tell you that much. But, it's, my thing has always been, I'm going to make the best thing possible for the people who are involved that are here today.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking, personally, I'm not saying a negative towards others doing it. I'm saying personally, I'm not looking to change an event for the people who aren't there, or the people who say, well, I would be there except this, or I don't. 100% of what I'm doing is based on, in the same way that I'm looking to provide competitors with the greatest value and feedback and everything else, I do the same in return. And, if you were here last year and you plan to be here next year, throw anything at me and we are going to make this that much better for everybody involved, who is involved, who's here, who has been here, who knows what's going on. And Aggieland is an invite event. It's fairly quiet as far as, I'm not out there trying to sell the event or hype it or get sponsors or anything else. The goal of it is to make it the best competitor event possible. And I think the fact that you kind of define that competitor versus sales event, Aggieland is not that sales event. It's anti that, if anything. I'm not looking to, a long time ago, I even split up the prize money from the event. I'm not promising anybody prize money. That comes from MTI and Chris and the passion to do that. I want people to come there to get a value for their entry, no matter where they place, no matter what they get back. Everything else is just icing on the cake.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, there are those people who want to go out and grow and garner new people and do that thing. I'm not that. I'm a maximizer. I'm not a developer. I'm out here to take something from 90% to 120%. I'm not the person to take something from 0 to 5%. It's just not in me. But on the flip side, I think there are a whole lot of people who do have that constant itch of, hey, we want this to spread out. We want this to be bigger. We want this, to grow and everything else. And I think, like what Iasca is doing with Expona and the show, and with the Florida Audio Expo and all those, like, it's giving it a shot.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad they're doing it, because it is at least an effort,
yes,
in a place where no one else is doing it. And so I give them credit for that,
On the downside, they're admittedly kind of cutting off a lot of that existing competitors to a certain degree by, when you move things the way they have and doing things the way they are, it's obviously a shift, and that's going to
Absolutely
rub people the wrong way, because they've been, I've been involved. The thing is, though, that this stuff all repeats itself. I remember when Paul Papadakis first bought Iasca in 2001-ish.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on the phone with him the next day griping him out, because, well, we all knew it was basically going to turn into Spring Break Nationals /
SBN.
Iasca,
The organization.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, if anything, it was the opposite case, where this thing was becoming hyper focused into this one area, and it was like, well, there goes Iasca, because we were going from dozens of regionals and everything else, all over the countries of regions, to it was basically going to be a Florida based Spring Break Nationals. And it kind of did, kind of didn't. It's kept going, obviously, and it will keep going. And there's a lot of opportunity there. So I would say yes, I understand both sides in that regard. Like I've said, like, I understand the frustration. I understand that it kind of feels like you're getting cut off at the knees, and if you've been involved and invested in that and everything else, like, it's kind of like, well, you got to go with the flow and join in on that, or let it go and find another way. The good part is there's plenty of other ways out there right now. There's lots of good opportunities, and there's growth opportunities for all of them to become better at what they do. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how it goes and see how we can see more ways to develop this. But I mean, if anything, Jeffrey, you've definitely made some good bells ring off of my head as far as dividing things up that way, because it makes me I think see things more clearly that okay, this is our path, and they're all working together in their own ways. And I think the more we lean into that for everybody, the better. So
yeah,
it's well done.
Yeah, I had a funny analogy that hopefully is well enough put together, but I think that having all the orgs is good. I'm actually not opposed to having 4 or 5 orgs, because I think that you can't possibly have those 50, 60 competitor events, without all these different orgs, right? And maybe you can, but that's just my opinion. I'm in full support of how many orgs there are and the efforts in their own areas of the country. But if we look to our bigger sports, our footballs and our basketballs of the Americas here, I think that your unified finals is kind of like when for basketball, the Lakers versus the Heat, right? You've got these dedicated teams at this unified finals somewhere more centrally located, so everyone can attend. It is truly the best of the best. There's no exclusivity there. It's just, let's get 200, let's get 300 cars at this event. That's the way that my mind works about it. Then let's do the NBA East versus West, where we take the best cars from every single nation and put them in a place like Expona, or put them in a place like MasterTech, or put them in a place like Heatwave, and let the shops, or let not the shops, but the manufacturers pay for those all-stars, like the all-star game, right? And so now you have all these all-star cars at these sales events, but your competitor events are still pure, so to speak. And, it doesn't matter that they're this massive, huge event. That's great. I would love to see a 200-300 car finals at one point or another. I just think that we won't get there without cultivating it on the sales side for a year or two aggressively, and working on the backside on the pure competition side, where the orgs are willing to come together and have more open communication, and the show promoters like yourself, Clifton, would step in and go, well, this is how I would do this, that, and the other thing to make it run smooth, like the Kicker SQ at HQ show did. Right. And that's how we get the 300 person finals in a centrally located thing. And that's how we get places like Expona and SBN that used to be, and Heatwave and MasterTech in the 4 freaking corners of the country, more or less, right, to all harmonize with each other, because otherwise we're just going to beat each other into a pulp, in my opinion.
No, I agree. Mike, any input?
No, I mean, I'd like to see more events like the Kicker event. It'd be cool to see more manufacturers kind of step into that space, and I'm sure it's difficult to make your facility available for a bunch of people to invade your spot, for a weekend or a year or something like that. But
and the good part with Kicker is that they're very set up for that. Like that, Kicker does these get together events constantly. Not sound quality shows like that, but they're very well managed to have this style of event. So they were just able to tack a couple more things onto it and keep going, So they are uniquely equipped for that. But yeah, I agree. It would be great to see more manufacturers be able to do that reach out, because Kicker's doing a lot in that regard to the community reach out for just local marketing.
And it's built some awesome brand loyalty for that company, honestly, in all types of spaces, like power sports, cars and trucks, sound quality, SPL. I mean, they have a pretty huge reach that not every manufacturer does.
Right.
So that'd be pretty cool to see. I challenge some of the other guys, some of the other manufacturers to try to, maybe not match it, but start one in your area.
Yeah. Yeah. Do something. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate it. Get back together in the next 3 to 5 years and see where things are at then. Thanks, Jeffrey, for coming on.
I definitely appreciate it, Clifton.
Yeah, man.